Now, could you imagine recording a course with a program that crashed? In fact, could you imagine recording one video and you just have to pray to the god o' gods that it actually stays
I'm
stable for
imagining
the
it right
video?
now. Can you see from the panic attack? Yes, no, I can imagine that because I have nightmares sometimes.
I've done it when Blender 2.8 was in alpha. It was a slog, but I got through. But no, I aged massively as it was
Oh.
going.
All right, let's see. All right, we're not getting a bunch of crashes. Great. So let's go to world environment and get rid of that fog and start that again. So let's make a new GPU particles 3D, and let's move it into the starter room. Let's move it into the starter room. And I've accidentally changed the extents. God, I'm good.
So, have you been saving, or has Godot been saving as we've
Every
been
time
going?
you press play, it saves, but I've also been saving. All right, so here is going to be our particle, and let's do this bit again. So new particle.
Todd says only 2 crashes in 30 minutes. Ship it. It works way better than some apps already. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
But it's a really frustrating way to develop. Like, so far, these crashes have been pretty good, but you guys remember, like, back in Alpha 3, we did a little bit of a test with navigation and procedure generated maps, and it looked pretty good. When Alpha 12 came out, I went to open it, do some work on it, and the entire thing was corrupt and unsalvageable. Like, that's bad. Now, yes, if you're using repos and all the rest of it, Git repos, you can fix that, but you shouldn't have to rely on that just to get by day. Like, it's not quite there yet. All right, Alpha.
That's a nice rose you've got.
It's a nice rose I've got. All right.
Force. Yes. It's a feature, Jan. It's called a forced break
Here's one
time.
I prepared earlier. That's going to make sense only to people who grew up in the UK in the 90s.
It's a good freeze frame of
and
me.
80s. Yep.
There we go.
So here's the scene we were making. This is definitely the one we were making. This is it. This is the scene we were making. We were going to play with this a little bit later.
We're not gaslighting anybody here. This is what the scene would have turned out with.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm thinking is there is something we can do here with collisions and particles. So here's my flames particle. And if I bring in let's do a static body. Let's put that there. And where do you go? As a child of static body, let's put in a mesh. And actually, you know what? This doesn't have to be a static body. I'll show you why in a minute. Ball. Let's get ball, and that's going to be a sphere. And it doesn't need to be that big. So let's say
rugby ball
of 0.5. Great. Okay. As a child of that, I'm going to put in particle collision sphere 3D. And that's going to have the same radius. Radius and diameter are not the same thing. Okay, so far, so what? We have a ball. It's just sort of there. It's not doing anything. But let's go back into a particle. And not that collision.
Oh, yes, we had this the other day. There's more than one thing called collision.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm not a huge fan of that one. Okay, collision is enabled. So I believe if I take this material, I wonder if going alpha is going to...
Let's see it going round.
Crash it again. Okay. So just making that a little bit transparent. Let's slow that down. Making that a little bit transparent so we can see what's happening here. But if I take the ball, see how let's turn off the turbulence as well, just so it's nice and clear what's happening. So turbulence off. There we go. All right. See how the particles are collecting here?
Squish the flames.
So I'm wondering if you could do something like that with a large particle. Like, don't do the entire thing. Like, center it on the player so it looks natural, but have like billowing cloud particles that react to the player. We can also, to make this a little bit more fun, let's go back over here, go to our collision, and give it some. It's got bounce. We can take bounce off to make it cling.
I mean, that you could even have that as your torch, and as you pass through narrower hallways or a low ceiling.
Yeah, you'd have to put collision boxes on doorways and walls and stuff like that. You could absolutely do that. There's other ways you can use this though. Like you could, let's put that there.
Does it? Can you give it a collision layer like you can do most collisions?
The particle, no. I think the collision shape, yes. But there's other things you could do. For instance, on your main level, here's my room. We could put in a collision box or a collision. Okay, is there a collision plane? There's a vector field. We could put in a vector field, and then if we have snow or rain or sparks, they could bounce off the floor or settle on the floor. So if you've got a level with a bunch of rain or a bunch of snow or something like that, that's how you can have it like settling on the roof. You look like you had a question.
No, I was going to say see ya to Genko, but then I typed it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, another fun thing we can do, and I like this one a lot. Let's check our fire has great. Okay. In fact, let's do it over here. Here's a giant sculpture of Bob. And I'm just going to make sure that these flames have a tractor on. Yes, they do. Excellent.
Ooh. I know what that means.
Yep. So let's make a particle attractor sphere. Meow, meow.
Have you been watching Star Trek recently?
I have not. In fact, I don't have a television. But if I bring this close,
That's awesome.
right? Like, and it's not just going to be Bob. Like, all of these currently have.
This would be brilliant. Like if you had a fire ability and you were close to a fire source, you could recharge it or even bolster it, make it stronger.
That's right. So if we wanted to put in a system whereby magical weapons had to be recharged by a certain element and you had a flaming sword, every time you go past a torch, you could put in this visual effect just to show it. We won't be doing that in the course because it's a little bit out of scope, but we will be showing you how you could do it if you wanted to add it in. Another thing we could do, right now I've got a strength of 3, strength of -3, and it's a repulsor, which I think is lovely. You can decide which one of these will actually work this way. You can also put in like your attenuation, like how sharply does it work, how slowly, and all the rest of it. You can put in directionality. Now, if the directionality is 1, it'll only deal with the forward direction of the sphere, right? So it's not going to the center of the sphere, it's going to forward, which is -Z. Or if you're from the United States of America, aluminium. But yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can do with that. Now that we have particles that can do that, and particle trails, which I haven't played with too much, I'm not entirely sure how to make them work. But the spell effects alone are incredible.